there's like the war in Iraq, there's Palestine, Afghanistan, and all this conquering from the Western countries and all this support it's getting. So it's basically it's not political. It's not only on the diplomatic level. It's touching people's lives. There are deaths going on. There are massacres going on, and then basically they hold the flag of patriotism and freeing the people, while in reality things are getting more complicated. Yeah.
I mean, when my country was invaded by the US Army, I felt very frustrated, and I felt that everything that I was thinking of, even my American friends, even my relationships with people from the US have been affected and changed, and my perspective as well was making me quite frustrated, because I thought that, well, how can I be friends with the people who are from the same country than of those who came and invaded my family and killed some of its members? So I think that no matter how much civil society or people or community or young people or individuals can make, on a high level, this should be taken into consideration.
Well, I see that the relationship between what's called the Eastern world and the Western world is a very negative one. That has a lot of judgment and has a lot of misunderstanding. I see that their relationship, these two worlds, if you want to say, or two parts of the world, as a negative one, because you can see all the wars that's going on between them and all this misconfusion that happens all the time between the West and the East, or the judgments, the stereotypical ideas that they give for each other, and you can see them backfire all the time on people. You can see it on the internet, in books, and ideas. And it makes me really upset because they don't really understand each other. And the only way that I see how they react makes me think that they really don't understand. They really don't know each other.
Nobody knows the other side at all, especially here looking at there. It really is us and other in that kind of, academic language, where we know nothing about them. We know nothing about their cultures. We just think there's one culture, that stretches basically from India all the way through to Turkey or something, and that there's no variations, and that you're either Middle Eastern or you're Indian.
When you have such a huge event like that, where there's a lot of tragedy and a lot of loss, people are going to have extreme reactions to it. There's this fanatical Muslim side that are these terrorists that did this horrible thing, and that's what we were shown a lot of, and there's anger towards those people. And then there's, a totally different perspective that we deserved it. This event brought such a negative light to a lot of Muslims. They became the poster people of terrorism. But then after that, there was this push for people to really understand the Muslim world. And it brought to light how people were mistreating Muslim people, and the negative reaction, the backlash that happened against Islam after 9/11. And so people in America were more inclined, once that was brought to life, to be more understanding and to make more an effort.
The first initial response after 9/11 was like, sorry, 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 that's not who Muslims are, sorry, sorry, sorry. And I think after a point in time, we realized, why are we apologizing? Because we didn't do it. We're like the 99%. Yes, we are. So we are the 99%. And why should we have to apologize? So from there's a more sort of active dialogue where it's like, well, why don't you get to know more about Islam? So what we'll do then is we will then try to inform you more about Islam. We'll open up our mosques or have more sort of Islamic information days, things like that, to that effect.
What we've seen here, especially in the rise of Islamophobia in 2012, is a lot of faith-based allies, political allies, individuals, just concerned citizens who realize this is a poison that is poisoning the well. They realize, what, Islamophobia is preying on fear and ignorance and hate. It's dividing us. There's nothing positive that comes out of it. These are not the values we teach our children, and we're going to stand up against it. So I think it's encouraging.
I think Muslims and Christians around the world have changed their views of each other quite dramatically in, say, the last decade. It isn't just the tragedy of 9/11 that was an important factor, but in addition, the experience of globalization itself is very important. You have people interacting in ways that 50 years ago simply didn't happen.
We are talking about a real global society now. That's really getting close to each other, relating to each other, connecting with each other, whether through Twitter, social medias, even regular communication.
Generally speaking, I think the fact that we live in an interconnected world now has had both positive and negative impacts in terms of people's perception. On the one hand, it's much easier to share information. Travel is much cheaper. People can go to different places. So I think our common humanity comes across a lot easier. It's a lot easier to see that people over there are just like people over here. And that really what unites people from different cultures is a lot more significant and a lot larger than the things that divide us from different cultures. On the other hand, I think modern technology has also made it easier to spread misinformation. You know, the internet now is increasingly how people get information, and you can't always verify that what's on the internet is actually accurate information. And the ease of use of tools like YouTube and other platforms make presenting false information as credible information in a professional fashion all that much easier. And I think the lines become more blurred about the information that's out there. It becomes more difficult to judge whether you're looking at credible information that's accurate or whether you're looking at propaganda. So in that sense, I think it's been a neutral advance towards the way we communicate across the world right now. And what we really ought to be making sure is that people who are interested in spreading correct information, people who are interested in promoting understanding, are making sure that they're working more tirelessly than the people who are capitalizing on people's ignorance, trying to promote.
Had I stayed in my community, I would have never kind of learned anything about the Arabic language. I would still kind of have an ignorant perspective towards the Middle East, and I think that there are still many, many people in the United States. I know that there are many, many people in the United States. I've been back to my community since, and that still kind of retain these ignorant ideas about the Arabic-speaking and Muslim world.
The Hollywood movies, we unconsciously analyze them. We would see how much stereotyping is going on in the Hollywood about Arabs and Muslims. It's very frequent that a murderer is called Ali or Ahmad or Muhammad, and then there is stereotyping about Arabs in their homeland, being Bedouins, enjoying belly dancing, and almost understanding nothing and doing nothing, which is absolutely unfair to the hundreds of millions of educated Arabs and Muslims actually living not only in the Middle East but all over the world, contributing to the progress of this civilization.
Stereotypes about this region that are really unfortunate. One of the most disturbing stereotypes is that this region is very dangerous. In fact, a lot of my friends and family said their final goodbyes to me when I moved here, because they believe that as a blonde American I'll be targeted and killed by terrorists. And they haven't seen the Middle East that I see, which is full of generous and kind people. They believe that, especially because of 9/11, they think that the region is very violent, and they don't see the kind and generous people. They don't see the culture, the religion as being peaceful.
And my roommate was an American here at AUB, and she was my best friend. And it took me a lot of time when I had to take her to my village and she wanted to visit and meet my family. It was as if they weren't accepting this new person. And it was so hard for me to understand. I didn't have that issue. I loved everyone equally. Again, because I was raised in a community full of love and with no stereotypes. But in Lebanon, it's different. And Lebanon, and also not only in Lebanon, but in other countries as well, there are a lot of stereotypes. The media really affects the way people think, especially before and after 9/11 and all of these issues. So I tried as much as I can to demonstrate to people, rather than telling people, no, this is wrong, or yes, this is what you should be doing. I wouldn't do that. I realized I had to be smarter. And so I started to demonstrate and show people that it's okay if we're friends with someone who's from Oman or America or Europe, and you can communicate and you can build bridges with these people.
So I'm sure that you can have a stereotype of an American or of a somebody from the Middle East and say, oh look, but this person totally fits this model, you know, like here's this American and they walk in and they're like, they're egotistical and they're super loud and like they don't understand any other languages and I don't know what else you might say. And then it's easy to convince yourself that all of the other things that you believe about Americans are also true. So I think when we assume that we understand somebody, we're all making mistakes. I think people with the higher ground are people who realize that they can't assume these things and they ought to meet people.
I think we should do trainings and activities on a very wide level through countries, between countries. That would help people understand each other more. By that I mean something resembling the Challenge Day, which is sort of a training that allows you to learn more about people who were complete strangers to you. You can do this in schools, in universities, you can do this in conferences. It's very simple. You gather groups of people who were complete strangers. They can't be people who know each other. And then you make those people say very personal things that, well, basically no one knows about themselves, and they share it with others. So when you share something that personal and that valuable with a complete stranger, they no longer become strangers and they no longer become threatening. They become human beings just like you are, and you view them differently, and therefore you will treat them differently.